So US housing market may finally see relief. What does that mean? What does that mean? Relief means there's probably going to be some price drops in real estate. So it says one of the most detrimental consequences of the stagflationary surge in the US since 2020 was the meteoric rise in housing prices, from rentals to purchases to mortgage across all markets. At present, the cost of housing stands around 30% of the average American's income, with home prices and rentals seeing at least a 60% increase in only 5 years. And in high traffic markets, the prices have jumped far higher. Says there may, however, be a light at the end of the tunnel with new developments suggesting a decline in housing costs is on the way, which means the demand for real estate is about to drop. And the reason for that is tariffs, which is weird. Apparently, there's a bunch of Canadians now who are selling their houses because they're afraid. Here, let me show you the part here. Where was it? Right here. The US and foreign media have these people terrified that there's a wave of Canadian hate rolling through the American heartland. So I didn't know this, but Canadians are the largest foreign property buyers, taking up 13% of all home purchases in the US. I didn't know that. So the uncertainty, the tariffs, the deportation of illegal immigrants means there's a bunch more real estate available. To that, I say good. And I think that one of the things that Bitcoin's going to do that a lot of people aren't really putting together yet is that it's going to, obviously the prices in houses have been falling in comparison to Bitcoin. But as the sell-off continues, a lot of that money is actually going to flow into Bitcoin. This capital that was sitting in real estate, it was sitting in there because real estate was the best way to store value for the wealthy people. You got too much cash, you don't want to keep it in a checking account. I think that most wealthy people understand inflation and not wanting to hold their wealth in fiat dollars, so they put it into real estate. And by putting it into real estate, that means that they drove up the prices, artificially increased the demand for real estate, driving up the prices and making it less and less affordable for somebody who actually wants to live in one of those houses, not just store value in it, but there's a lot of people out there who actually want to live in these houses who couldn't afford to do it because of all this, because real estate was being used as a store of value. So what's going to happen is that as that starts to, it's going to be a cascading effect too. Once there's more and more reports like this, once the demand increases and there's a whole bunch of supply of real estate on the market, a lot of that money is just going to flow into Bitcoin. And that's a good thing. Because again, as that happens, the housing prices will fall, more people will be able to afford a house, and homes will actually be used what they were meant to be used for, which is to live in. Not to store wealth in, but to live in. So I think that is actually an underappreciated aspect of Bitcoin, is that it's going to allow more people to actually be able to own and live in a house, as opposed to just buying it, visiting there once a week, and just storing your cash and letting it go up in price along with inflation. So that's going to be pretty big for real estate, in my opinion, or for Bitcoin, I mean, as that money flows out of real estate. Because real estate people aren't dumb. They built up a lot of wealth. They just needed a place to store that wealth. And before Bitcoin, there wasn't a better option than real estate. But when you have somebody with a bunch of capital, a wealthy person with a bunch of capital, and they look at these two things here side by side objectively, and they see that their real estate portfolio has gone up in value with inflation, and they see their costs, their utilities, their insurance, their property taxes also going up with that as well. So their expenses have increased. And you can only raise your rent so high before people say, I can't afford that. especially with the immigrate or the what would it be called? Emigration, people leaving. There's going to be less people renting houses. There's going to be less demand for rent. So expenses are up. Rents, you can only, I mean, not only because of demand, but there's a lot of laws that prevent landlords from raising their rent too much, too fast. And so they're going to look at something like their income statement and say, okay, I made what, 5% this year, 10% this year? Whereas Bitcoin historically, again, has gone 50, 60% per year. And you don't have to worry about tenants. You don't have to worry about cost increase. And you know that a lot of that money that was in real estate is also going to flow into Bitcoin, which is also going to increase the value of that. So it's going to happen. It's really just a matter of people figuring this out. That's kind of the lag here right now, is that most people don't see this. All right, what do we got here? Tom says we are at 4%. It's just been hammered into her that real estate is king. Well, I mean, it was. That's what you have to remember here. Real estate for wealthy people was the best place to store value. It was. It's not anymore, but people just haven't figured that out yet. And that's the whole opportunity here.